Before we begin this side-by-side, do you think you can guess the correct console based off these screenshots? Need for Speed Underground 2 is the 8th game in the series. It was developed by EA Black Box and was released in 2004, and it's a direct sequel to the first Underground title. It's available for the Gamecube, Sony's PlayStation 2, Microsoft Xbox, Windows PCs, mobile phones, the Gameboy Advance, Nintendo DS, and the Sony PlayStation Portable. Underground 2 added several new features. Instead of selecting different game modes, you now have an open world and you have to drive to different events. You can create a waypoint on the map and follow the arrows so you don't get lost. Also, in free roam, you'll have access to tuning shops, car lots, and there's hidden money everywhere. The game includes several SUVs to race with, and can be customized just as much as cars. The main character of the game, besides you of course, is voiced by the incredibly hot Brooke.
I play Rachel, who's the star of the game, and Rachel's basically a sexy, confident, tough, very streetwise, fast cars, beautiful girls, adrenaline. I think this is a game that anyone can enjoy.
Underground 2 brings back previous game modes. There's Circuit Mode, where you race against others with a set number of laps. Sprint Mode, where you compete against other racers from point A to point B, no laps at all. Drag Racing, always my favorite.
Check it like this. The RPM is the key to getting ahead of the competition. Launch at the right time and rocket into the lead with speed. It's the daddy of success, so hit it up at the perfect shift point for max power. This is gonna be big, dog. You ready?
You got Drifting.
Yo, check this. The drift is all about style and control. Remember these 3 words: speed, steering, and handbrake, because they all play a factor in setting up those sweet moves that are gonna get you racking in some heavy points. And the scoreboard will light up something hard.
The newly added modes are Outrun, where the leader must overtake and reach 1,000 feet before the rival racer. Special Event, where you must compete a closed point A to point B before the time runs out. And when you get to the end, you get a prize. Example, with this one, you get to take a photo for a cover of a magazine. Then you have Street X or Street Cross.
You're about to be fully felt by the street cross. These here tracks are tight. There's very little room to bend the curves, so make sure your ride's dialed in right. Alright then, get out there and go savage, bro.
SUV events, circuit and sprint races where you only can race as SUVs. And Underground Racing League, players compete against other racers in a tournament on a closed race course. Racers get points after each race based on their position. The winner is the racer that has collected the most points after the final race. Playing online was awesome when it was available, but EA shut the servers down in 2010. Of course, there are ways you can play online still, on the PC, but I won't go into how, as this video is not about that. You can play online with the PlayStation 2, Xbox, and PC. On the handheld side, the PSP and Nintendo DS had online capabilities. The customization was pretty much the same as it was in Underground. You can modify almost anything, such as lights, bumpers, side mirrors, stereo equipment, and spinners. And you still have your performance mods to install to make your ride faster and better. The new additions in Underground 2's customization includes fine-tuning and a dyno run for players to adjust their vehicle's performance abilities. The game was very well received. Here's the Metacritic scores. From the full retail versions, the Gamecube has the lowest score. That's probably due to the lack of online play. The handheld copies have the Nintendo DS with the lowest score. Let's talk about the mobile versions now. The PSP is the only one with a different title. It's known as Need for Speed Underground Rivals, and was developed by Team Fusion. It's the first Need for Speed game to be released on the PlayStation Portable, and visually it shows the detail on the cars isn't as good as future Need for Speed games on the PSP. On the Nintendo DS, it was developed by a European studio known as Pocketeers, which also created the Gameboy Advance version. Underground 2 for mobile phones was developed by IdeaWorks 3D, and it doesn't look too bad. They all share a lot of the same game modes from the console versions. The Nintendo DS adds a new feature called Own the Zone, which segments each course into separate parts, and players claim the portion of the track by earning the fastest time at the start and end of the zone's perimeter. The game actually plays pretty smooth and looks decent. For the Game Boy Advance, they beefed up the drag racing this time around, whereas on the first Underground, it was just a small bonus thing. In Part 2, you need to swerve in and out of traffic now, and it's actually pretty fun to play. The mobile phone has the same basic modes as the GBA and plays very similar too, it just looks a little bit better. The PSP is mostly the same, but when you get to the drift racing, it's where it gets different. Instead of drift racing in the streets, you are in a building and need to drift within these arrows or you fail. And I failed a lot. I prefer the drifting on the other copies of the game. Let's go back to the consoles now. If we compare the draw distance, I'd have to say the Gamecube is the worst. Not by a lot, just a little bit more blurry than the PlayStation 2. Now obviously the PC looks best, and Xbox is second. Now I guess I accidentally changed the camera on the Xbox and I didn't notice, so it's always going to be a little bit more zoomed in versus the others. Here's a better example of the draw distance. The PC looks great, but it's so good you can see the lack of detail in the city cars. Once I got into fancier looking areas, I can tell that the PlayStation 2's frames per second would drop a bit. Nothing too dramatic though. Let's take a look at the anti-aliasing. The Gamecube doesn't look too bad, probably due to the fact that it's a little bit more blurry. The PlayStation 2 definitely shows more aliasing, very jagged lines. The Xbox's visuals are superior, but because of that, it shows off the aliasing a lot more. On the PC, there's very little, pretty much none. However, this is a modern PC. Some people back in the day may not have been able to afford a gaming PC good enough to play on Macs. So let's take a look at low. Oh yeah, big difference. The PC on low has tons of aliasing going on, jagged lines everywhere, and a clear lack of detail. Let's put them both side by side. You can clearly tell the difference. I played the Gamecube last, and I didn't mind it. The controls were smooth and the lack of jagginess was a plus. A good port. The PlayStation 2 may look a tad better, but all the flickering hurts my eyes. Still fun to play and not a bad one to own. The Xbox I played first, and I thought this looks pretty damn good for an old ass game. And well, it does. The PC is hands down the best port, as long as you hook up a controller to use. I use the keyboard, which isn't terrible, but a controller is definitely better. The FPS on all ports are good enough to play. The controls are the same, and it really just comes down to preference. Do you prefer better graphics like me? Or do you like a certain controller or enjoy one you grew up on, so you'll be that nostalgic person? Which I am mostly too. I actually never owned this one, so I'm open to pick the best one. Or you simply already own it, or you don't have a particular console. So what I'm trying to say from this long boring speech is, they're all great, play any of them. Or just play the first Underground, which I personally prefer. Well, that's all I have for you today, guys. So my next side-by-side will be Elder Scrolls Oblivion. I bet I made some of you very happy. Well, until next time, take it easy.